Hey guys, it's Emilia here and welcome to Journal Engineer. It's finally time to do a February theme and I got inspired by Shaya Fury, who kinda made a trend called Fantasy February, kinda like Inktober. I really love her idea as a challenge because such challenges make us develop our imagination, so this is what I did here. As you may know, for 2023 I'm doing black and white theme journal, but if you're new here, welcome to the channel. Here I'm exploring everything about bullet journals, layouts, planning techniques, art and spreads, and I think that each bullet journalist has different needs and from there a different journal. Learn, explore and keep creating. Let's begin with our February. Before we start, here is a quick glimpse of my January avatar related theme. If you have missed it, you can check out the link down in the description where I linked this video. So as I said, I'm doing Fantasy February, and what is more fantasy than flying rocks and villages on them? I use this picture as an inspiration. I start to sketch them out just as big flying blocks without details. I also draw the connections or the bridges between them so I can have full perception of the page. On the right, I'm gonna have my heading, February, and also the February calendar. As the big rock in the middle of the left page will be my focus object, I always try to have focus objects in my themes, I add a few more details on it. I draw the second circular line that marks where the houses will start from, then I start sketching out the rock details. The good thing about fantasy is that I don't need to put in a lot of effort to make things look realistic. It's fantasy after all. Therefore, if you recreate this theme in your journal, don't worry about how you arrange these details. Well, there are some rules for lights and shadows that you must follow, but I will explain them later on in the video. For now, the one thing I will do is to mark with an arrow where the light will come from. This is gonna be important for later. After I'm done with the biggest stone, I start finishing up the small flying rocks. Since they have to look like they're coming towards us, I draw them bigger and bigger. But not bigger in means of overall size, but bigger in means of the details on the rocks. And in this order of thoughts, you can see that I make all the rocks with elongated stones downwards. There is no particular reason for that. They just look better to me like that. Like they're just big chunks of something else. So yeah, you can make them whatever you like. Continuing with the details on the bridges, I first must write February. If you remember a little earlier, I erased a sketch where the placement of the letters was outlined. Never make this mistake of mine, because only after I started writing did I realize that I had made the letters too big and they could not fit all in one line. I'm used to correcting mistakes all the time, but here my brain was blocked. Literally, for 30 minutes I was busy wondering how I could fix this mistake, and finally I just got fed up with my thoughts and I decided to move the word to the next line with a hyphen. After all, I completed first grade and I can do this. Then I quickly outline it with Micron 01, all the letters. I really like this effect when the color of the letters itself is paler and the outline is what gives the contrast. I even added extra lines along the outline for decoration. However, I haven't outlined the second row of letters yet because I want one of the bridges to go over them, which means that I have to make the bridge itself first. Oh my god, people, you don't know what a pain this bridge was. Well, you're gonna find out in soon. Before that though, I decided to start with something easier and began to outline the details of the rocks. In this type of drawings, you always start from the front object, and that's why I start from this rock. After drawing the basic lines, I proceeded with the bridge. I admit here the perspective and the boards on it were a bit confusing and it looks a bit droppy, but the others I will draw them better. So don't follow this bridge as an example, I will explain everything to you in a minute. After drawing the first bridge, I realized that all the bridges are actually in front of the rocks themselves and I should draw them first. For this, I simply noted the upper edge of the rocks. I drew the pegs on the bridges and I start painting them. Honestly, as I'm explaining this to you, I feel like this. Don't worry, it's not that complicated. I continue with the most complex bridge, the most complicated one because it will require the most details. Here I will save you half an hour of me wondering how and attempting to draw the bridge in perspective, and I'll go straight to the final version. It is important to remember that suspension bridges have two main lines, and because they're hanging, that means that you have different perspective over the beginning of the bridge and over the end of the bridge. From our vantage point, these two main lines can intersect with each other. Another important element is that the closer you are to the end of the bridge, the longer the two lines will run side by side and slowly move apart. In our case, we first see the upper side of the bridge, then as the bridge rises slightly up, they will intersect for longer and then separate. You see the two lines here? Yeah. If we call them left and right line, notice how they switch places. First, the right line is above the left, and then after the crossing, the left line is above the right. Now that I have two lines that look good next to each other, it's time to draw the boards. There is also a direction feature for them. To make it easier, we start from the far end, where we have the two pegs as a guide. The first boards are always parallel to these pegs and perpendicular to the two lines. After that, it's easy because it's the moment of turning the perspective, so we have the two close lines where they're crossing, and we don't have to worry about the boards there, where exactly the hard part about the boards. However, the boards that are located towards our view are more difficult. They are not perpendicular to the two lines, and we have no pegs for reference. I mean, it's a nightmare. The easiest option for me is to imagine a three-dimensional cube looking from below and thus orient the lines of the planks against the two main lines of the bridge. This is how it looks in post, and I hope that is clear enough. After I'm sure where the boards should be cut, I repeat them with Micron 01, making sure that they are not perfectly straight but have slight breaks between them. I can't believe that in this futuristic modern city that lives on a cliff on a flying rock, they have straight boards. After that, I also paint the pegs that hold the railings. Notice that they're also three-dimensional. We see their two sides and even one of them is more shadowy. They also decrease in size and distance. Even the pegs that are on the right line at some point are hidden by the bridge because, it is raised relatively to our point of view. Once I have the bridge drawn, I can easily do the details on this rock, and I finally finished the February heading. As you can see, the last letter actually goes behind the bridge, and due to that we have to draw it first. Then, since I erased all the shadows on the pencil, I add them with a micron pen. I continue with the rest of the bridges. Notice how the curve of the rear bridge is larger than the left one, and the right lines cross more sharply, and there is no extended part as there was on the front bridge. Remember that the more sagged the bridge looks, the shorter the lines should stand next to each other. I outline the other bridge, which is right in front of the big stone, and I continue with the details on the stone itself. Before I proceed with their shadow covering, I would like to explain a few more important things. Remember the arrow that we drew in the beginning? Now you're gonna see what I need it for. Drawing the shadows well is not as difficult as you think. I will reduce the whole scale to a simple cube because with it you can be able to understand the idea of shadows very easily. Again, I draw an arrow where the light is coming from. The upper side of the cube remains the lightest because it is directly illuminated by the light. We won't even add a small shadows here. We cover the right side of the cube in shadows because it is not directly illuminated by the light, but still some amount of light reaches it. The front side of the cube, on the other hand, is completely in shadow and therefore is the darkest one. Let's try a slightly more complicated shape. Here is a three-dimensional trapezoid, and which we will again see the three sides. If you transfer this knowledge to a more complex object, such as the rocks that we have, the picture will look like this. It's easiest to start with the darkest end because there is nothing to mess up there. So because this is the back part, it's certainly not illuminated from the light, and that's why we can make it even black. Not even with shadows, it's just black. Sometimes we can make shady spots in the middle of bright spots like here. If we imagine that this small piece is an indentation, it will also be in a shadow. Notice that I'm going to draw dark ends along the lines on the left, and the same piece of stone has several shades. This is because in particular, this illustration I am imagining the stone with slightly rounded pieces. If you look them in a profile, then they will look like this, which means that the issued part that is higher is gonna be more lighter, and the lower part that is not illuminated is gonna be darker. If you find this difficult to imagine or to draw it, then you can simply divide a segment into two with a pen and make one side darker than the other. The effect will be almost the same. Now let's go back to the cover and apply what we have learned. But before that, if you enjoyed this video so far, don't forget to give it a like or even subscribe to the channel. I'll be more than happy to have you here. Usually I'm posting only once a month, so I'm not gonna spam your homepage a lot. I start with the back pieces of stone and I darken them. It is important to mention that darkening with this type of paint is not done by repeating the lines many times in the same direction, but by overlapping them in different directions. You can see this in more detail here. You don't have to go through the different pieces of stone in order. As I mentioned, the easiest for me to draw is the darkest segments first and then the lighter ones. If everything seems hard to you, an equally good way to diversify is to pour small cracks to blacken some parts. They're easy because they're just simple shapes, and the cracks are always black because, well, they're cracks. Don't worry if the shadows don't look right at first when you paint. Very often you need several layers of shadows for the particular segment to get a good look. February will be a pretty short month in my journal because I have a big 1 month long trip to Asia coming up. And honestly, I can't wait as this will be my first big trip since COVID, and I won't lie, I miss being away from home. Because of this, I will not use my journal entirely in February. I will use it literally on the first week. I'm not even gonna take it with me there because I have separate travel journal for trips. Maybe someday when I have time, I will make a video of how I make my travel journal, since I basically do them before I even do bullet journals and I'm way more experienced there. As I think that my shadowing is gonna be important for some of you, I'm not gonna cut it out in the video right now. I'm just gonna make it fast, and yeah, you can just enjoy it for a little while. I will be back in a minute. Finally, I did a few houses on the top of the main rock. They are not perfect execution of my drawing skills, I admit, but at this point I got kinda hungry, so I wanted to finish them as fast as I could so I can grab a lunch. The houses are just little blocks and some of them have this squarish decoration that I just love. It reminds me of the Latino series that we had back when I was little, and if you have watched something like Three Brothers and Three Sisters, it was hit back then around 2005, and my grandmas were crazy about the main characters. Julio, do you love me? No, Julieta, I love your sister. I mean, it was hilarious, guys, really. After I finished the houses, I decided that I want more magic on this page. And that's why I started doing dots. This is a technique that I really enjoy and probably use a lot throughout the entire year because it's really simple and it can be really impressive. So I basically start putting dots all around the rocks so I can make this glowing effect. Usually it's kind of like outline because the dots are not actually touching the rock itself, so they're like apart from it. It just strengthens the glowing effect that I'm trying to achieve. The only negative part of this effect is that it requires a lot of time. I mean, I was literally listening to podcasts for like 1 hour and just doing dots and dots and dots, but yeah, at least it's beautiful. I decided to put dots only on the lower part of the drawing. I mean, only the rocks, not the cities itself. As you can see, I just probably like to make the magic part only the natural one, only the rocks and not the things that are built by humans. But I don't know why I decided that. I guess it's just a mystery of my mind. I like it better. Let's say this. With that, I think that we're finally done with our cover and I'm happy with the result, although I admit it took me a long time to make. We move on to the next page, which will be my social planner. This time I won't make the monthly planner and brand them because, as I mentioned, I won't be there for a whole month and I won't need them. If you're new here and you want to see these pages as well, you can check out my January setup in the description where I did them and explain them how I use them. Well, although I don't need these pages, my hand mechanically, out of habit, type a planner and a brain dump. Only I realized that after writing them out. I tried to think of an adequate way to fix them, but in the end I decided to just go ahead with them. So usually if this page is not mistaken, as I did right now, it's written on the top social planner. This is a planner that I do for a second month in a row and it's been a lifesaver for me. So I have 6 columns. Each column is representative of one social profile that I have. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't have 6 social profiles. I have 3 only because of the bullet journal. I mean, I have a column for my posts, my planner posts. I have a column for my YouTube videos and shorts, and I have another column for my stories because actually posting stories, it's way more harder than posting. I really like to engage with you people, but like doing all this engagement parallel to my main work and my main life and trying to be social with my friends and trying to be healthy and going to some kind of fitness or physical activity, sometimes it can be a mess. And it's really relieving when I can just open the social planner and see, okay, so today I would like to share a picture of my room, for example, or from a view from my workspace, or to ask you a question that I taught earlier this year. I mean, yeah. In the meantime, if you want to answer to our posts, every Friday I post an interesting poll and just share with you guys what is the community, what the community thinks. It's really interesting. You can check it out in my Instagram profile. So yeah, I think that we're ready with the social planner. As I said, I'm not gonna bring my journal with me in Asia, Philippines, if I can be more accurate. I'm not gonna bring my journal there. And you may be wondering why I have social planner for the entire month. Well, because I'm just gonna take a picture of it. I mean, I'm gonna be just a lazy boomer. Yeah. And I think that we're ready with this page. It's not that complicated. And it took way less more drawing than the cover page, as always. The next page and the last page that we're gonna do today is my first week of February and the only week that I'm gonna have at home. It's a really simple page. It's one of my favorite layouts that really works for me because I have enough space to write my daily tasks in, you see, the weekdays. And in the meantime, I'm gonna have the entire right page for everything. Like, I don't know about you guys, but the week before I go to a trip is just a madness. Like, every time it's a freaking madness. I mean, I need to buy this, and especially because my country right now is a winter time, and I'm going somewhere that is a tropical weather, and I need to find a swimsuit in the middle of the winter. Believe me, this is a nightmare. So yeah, I decided for this week to just minimize a bit the daily fields and leave a bit more free space for me. I have field for the Philippines where I don't know what I'm gonna write, but for sure I'm gonna need to write something in this week. And also I have 2 more fields for stuff that I should not forget. And yep, finally 1 big field of, I don't know, probably I'm gonna write it with something. So yeah guys, this is my February month. It's gonna be my entire month, so I'm gonna be a little bit inactive in my social media, although I can't wait to share with you what I'm gonna do in Philippines. And if somebody of you is from Philippines, just text me in my Instagram. I'll be more than happy to know you more. And yeah, if we cross somewhere on my trip there, I'm gonna stay there for the entire February. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. I'm gonna upload my next video in the 3rd video of February. You might ask yourself how I'm gonna do this. Well, I actually pre-recorded it right now, so I'm just gonna upload it. It's my March, and I think it's awesome, guys. You're gonna check it. So, yep, reserve your dates on the 3rd week of February and prepare for my 3rd video for this year. Thank you for watching till the end, guys. I hope I'm gonna see you in March again, and until then, don't forget to stay on the sunny side.